How to Menopause and Perimenopause Like a Goddess. Okay, bit of a tongue-in-cheek title there. And open and honest, I'm not sure where I'm at on that spectrum of labels of change. I'm 42 years old. I know that I look and present and feel differently than I did, say, 5 years ago. Okay, so I'm not sure. This isn't about my personal experience. This is about the perspective of this time of transition from an energetic point of view and from the point of view of working with the goddess energy. Okay, so first of all, I want to address that it absolutely has been commercialized, this label of menopause and perimenopause. It is being utilized to sell us a multitude of products, things that seem to, on a very basic level, fight the change. Okay, fight the changes that your body may feel to make, fight the changes that are in your lifestyle, or the way that maybe you're being asked to draw back and withdraw from service in those mother years when you are in service all the time. Hormonally and energetically, maybe you're being asked to pull back. So these products and services and information, videos, podcasts, etc., seem to be very concerned with fighting the process to some extent, and also agreeing that this is a finite end to a certain part of you or a certain part of your life. And there seems to be this general consensus that it is overall a negative experience. Okay, I hear that, I understand and I support that this is something that needed to be brought into the arena of talking, but it seems to still have this very masculine quality of being a sales pitch, and also this masculine quality of it being a problem that is to be solved or overcome in some way. Okay, so from the goddess perspective, on this perspective of working with goddess energy, what is the difference that we can the different perspective that we can take on this? So the first thing that I feel into with this is that, think about the triple goddess. This is an archetype of goddess that comes through all types of mythology. Okay, and one of the most sort of well-known imagery is the triple moon. So we've got the full moon in the middle and the half moon on that side and the half moon on that side. And this idea of the triple goddess, we call it like the maiden mother crone. Okay, so it's all related to the moon, our cycles, the cyclical nature of woman. But the triple goddess is essentially one entity with three archetypal faces. Okay, so in the goddess energy, in energy medicine even, all three states are present at the same time. It isn't a case of childhood, maidenhood, motherhood, crone. Okay, it is the fact that the woman, the female or feminine experience of life is all three of these influences happening simultaneously. Okay, now the body changes from one to another. The experience of life changes from one to another. But in reality, spiritually and energetically, we keep aspects of who we are, or we should be able to keep aspects of who we are at each stage. Okay. Anyone who's ever seen a little girl playing dolls, or caring for a younger sibling or other child around them, or speaking absolute pearls of wisdom, you will have witnessed the fact that the child can give out aspects of the crone and the mother. Okay, the maiden can give out aspects of the child and the mother. When we have a baby, when we go into hospital, we certainly aren't, or the hospital or home, as hopefully it would be, but mine weren't. We don't come out the same woman as went in. You just don't, because that whole experience of however that birth went. I'm a 2-time C-section mum. First emergency, second sort of pressurized elective. In Spain, they don't allow you to really to go VBAC. See, I'm justifying that, but whatever. I am a 2-time C-section mum. Still, the story around that had me changed. Okay, but from the person I was when I went in, the person was when I went out. From a spiritual, the 3 cauldrons, the kind of the goddess energy perspective, that mother is going to grieve the version of her that went into the hospital or into the birthing room at home, okay, because she knows she's changed. However, you still keep some of your maiden energy. It's there. It's the a lot of women go into this terrible depression after birth, or baby blues, or whatever you want to call it, because it isn't handled correctly in these days. We're out of our women's circles. We're not connected in the way we were, and we're not taught how to, yes, grieve the part that's gone, but also how to weave in the maiden that is left. And one of the ways that we kind of automatically weave in the maiden that is left is through our sexual libido and our sexuality. And you can see how kind of that gets quite messy because it's so related to other things. But if we were taught how to healthily weave that maidenhood into our motherhood journey, things would be very different. It wouldn't just be about trying to put your black laces on once a month to try and keep something live. Do you know what I mean? It would be about the healthy integration of our maidenhood into our motherhood. So when we're at this point, when we're going from our motherhood into our crone era, and in reality, it's not just maiden, mother, crone. There are endless archetypal existences of the feminine. And I'm using the term feminine now because it's the feminine aspect of all, okay? But in this case, obviously, I am speaking into the people who are being sold this idea of the change, the one change, like the change. Like what is, it's not, we're in a constant bodily, energetically, emotionally, we're in a constant state of flux from the second we come out the womb until the second we go back the other way. So this idea that this is the change is totally conceptualized through language and through, again, this very patriarchal male view of the problematic change in a woman that comes as she ages. Okay, so again, this idea of it being a problem, of being an issue, it's not coming from your own body. It's coming from you no longer fit the patriarchal ideal of a woman. You're not here solely for your sexual prowess. You're not here solely to mother. You've started to, with the hormone reduction, you've started to withdraw from service. So you are now seen as, in a patriarchal system, a problem. In the old, goddess times of goddess worship, you were celebrated for your wisdom. So I had to go and get some water and a tissue then. I started a sneezing fit, a coughing fit. Okay, so this idea of you in the past, in the feminine celebratory times, the times of celebrating the goddess, you were started to be celebrated for your wisdom. Because your body stopped being able to produce a child, and because the body does still stop being able to produce a child, it doesn't take away your ability to nurture. You know, grandmothers are inherently nurturing. I see grandmothers who are more nurturing in their cronehood than they were in their motherhood, because they don't have the multitude of other things still happening. You can and should be able to still tap into your maidenhood as well, energetically and in reality. You know, women of 70 can have a sex life. You know, this isn't new stuff, you know, but we have to be able to access that and believe that that is the case. Okay, we have to be shown, we have to be held in these transitional times. And again, grieve what isn't anymore. You know, you may need to grieve not being able to no longer being able to conceive. You may, you know, you may need to grieve your monthly bleeds. You know, that may have been, you know, it's such a big part of your life in that middle section, you know, or there's lots of things that, yes, rightly, as they go, you should be grieving and actively releasing. Now, but then there again is this recognition and the ceremonial or ritualistic way of weaving in what it is you're taking with you, what it is you're bringing in from maidenhood to motherhood, from maidenhood to cronehood, and understanding that that cycle started, that wisdom was being fed into you by your crone version, even as a child and as a maiden. Okay, so you can see when you start to look at it in this cyclical but also interwoven way, it loses some of the drama. You know, it doesn't lose its magnitude. It's still incredibly important, but it loses this fear-based, you know. And what I'm feeling as well again is it loses this fighting, this I must fight these symptoms. You know, we're symptomizing something that is a totally natural process. I must alleviate, I must stop my body wanting to adjust and change and flow. And, you know, I must stop my mind wanting to not be so focused on this and, you know, be freer, be open to the higher realms of knowledge. Why do you want to stop all that? Why do you want to stop that? Because we're told that it's a problem. It's problematic for you to lose your servitude and your ability to satisfy and only be that. Okay, so the final piece I want to weave in here is this idea of working with the goddess energy. Okay, so the goddess energy, I call it Imbasforosne, others call it Shekinah, others just simply know it as the goddess light. It is a light force. It is that I had it described to me as being the halo that sits around the source, the masculine source that is the infinite intelligence, you know, the source, God, whatever you want to call it. It is the feminine part of that dual entity. Okay, it's a mystery. None of us know what it is, but this is the feminine aspect as we understand it in our humble human brains. Okay, when you work with goddess, and goddess was right there beside God energy in all of the ancient celebrations, all of the ancient traditions. When you work with goddess energy, what you then sort of come to are the stories of the archetypal goddesses. Okay, so for example, in Imbasforosne, we have Bowen, we have Bridget, and we have Danu, okay, as the three main. There are others. And it's all one energy with different faces, different facets, okay, different archetypes. We know the archetypes of the planets. We know the archetypes of the Greek goddesses, the Roman goddesses, okay. Now, so it's a bit like this crystal. Okay, so it's one light, one entity, many facets of the same thing. Now, this is true of all the archetypal or mythological ways of examining the earth and examining this human experience here on earth. So when we're looking at this from the goddess perspective, from a spiritual perspective, we start to realize that we can be these archetypes, these different faces and facets. We can be several of them in the day. We can certainly be a few in the month, and so we start to allow these archetypes, these stories, to bring out reflections in our own personalities and characters and beings. So when we view this as we have one whole with lots of facets, this is true of every single day of your life. In every single day of your life, you are a number of different facets of the same crystal or diamond to whoever it is that you're interacting with, to yourself, to the animals, to all the different little bits that you're doing. You can think of it in very, mundane terms of, okay, in work, I'm this person. At home, I'm this person. When I'm talking to my children, I'm this person. When I'm dealing with my mum and dad, I'm this person. It's all one entity with different facets. And when we start to recognize that that is just daily existence, these three maiden, mother, crone, three archetypal existences, they don't seem quite so much, do they? They don't seem quite so unmanageable. So I would love to hear from you. If you have anything to say on this matter, share this video, pass it to a mate who might, be going through it a little bit in this stage of life. And what can I do for you, or what can I advise? Energy work, 100%, that when you're working with your own energy, there are points you can use. There are self energy tracing techniques that you can do that fortify you against change and allow you to soften into change. There are also things that you can do energetically that help to balance your hormones continuously all the time, so that major kind of ups and downs are less. You can also I can also advise you on how to create ceremony or ritual around changes in general, or this change, this one type of change. For most people, this change lasts 10 years. So that is not the change. That is a multitude of changes. If there's anything that you feel that I might be able to do for you on this vein, if there's something if you'd like to have a session and we can go through some self-massage and points and somatics that you can use in order to ease through through a transition, including this one. If you would like some advice on how to make ceremony, if you'd like me to make a little video now about how we can ceremonially let go of the parts that we need to let go of and keep the parts that we want to keep, and still be that 80-year-old. I remember seeing one of my friends when I lived in Ibiza was much older than me, and my partner at the time and me used to hang around with this older couple. And I remember I was very, very young mother at the time, and I was in that stage of being, I was shattered, I was a bit vacant, but I remember being out, and we were at this reggae event, and this woman who was in her late 60s was like, come on, let's get up and dance. And I couldn't get up and dance, and I was like, no, I don't want to dance. And she got up and she was moving and she was going for it, and everything was going, the hips. She looked amazing. And I, who at 32 at the time probably did look amazing, aesthetically, couldn't didn't have the wherewithal and the confidence to get up on that dance floor at that moment, feeling in this uncared for, or you know, I hadn't been able to deal with my own transition, because like most people at that time, I was just on my own. This is just what you do. Wasn't able to bring in that playful maidenhood energy, but this woman was. You know, she had gone through her mother, she was now into her crone, and she was still drawing that maidenhood in, and she was giving it absolute socks on that dance floor. And it's always an image that's stuck in my mind. And as I've grown through the motherhood journey and reconnected with my own body and reconnected somatically and got rid of some traumas and done all these other things that I've gone through, I can feel myself re-able to connect with that maiden, and re-able to bring that sensuality and that playfulness in at all times. So, long and short of it, if you feel I can be of any more help, if you'd like to see a video of how to create ceremony or how to create ritual around the interweaving of these three archetypal facets of the woman into your life at this time, please let me know. God bless.